Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded city street at night, horns blaring, skyscrapers glowing, and watching a young woman drop to her knees in frustration. Her rent is overdue, her dreams feel shattered, and for a moment she whispers, "Maybe I'll never make it." But what if I told you that this same woman would one day be called the disciplined millionaire? We all want to break free from the grind, to finally have more than enough, to walk through life with freedom instead of fear. That's why we chase motivation, podcasts, speeches, endless YouTube videos. For a moment, it feels like fire in our veins, but then reality hits: traffic, bills, exhaustion, and just like that, the fire dies. Here's the truth no one talks about. The wealthy aren't fueled by bursts of inspiration. They live by a forgotten secret. A secret so powerful, yet so ordinary, that most people ignore it. And because of that, they stay stuck. In today's story, you'll see how Clara, just another face in the crowd, stumbled upon this secret in the most unexpected way. A late-night encounter on a city bridge, a conversation she didn't see coming, and one habit that turned her entire life around. Stay with me until the end, because when you hear what happened on that bridge, you'll realize this story isn't just about Clara, it's about you and the wealthy life that discipline is quietly trying to hand you if only you'll take it. Clara had always believed she was destined for something bigger. She worked in a busy office downtown, surrounded by glass towers and flashing billboards that reminded her of everything she didn't yet have: freedom, abundance, and peace of mind. Every morning on the train, she whispered to herself, "One day I'll figure it out. One day I'll be rich." But one day never seemed to come. She devoured motivational talks, read self-help books late at night, and scribbled goals into journals. The problem wasn't desire. She had plenty of that. The problem was follow-through. Each new promise she made to herself lasted only a few days before collapsing under the weight of routine. The city kept moving forward, while Clara felt stuck in place. Deep down, she wondered what she was missing. Why did the wealthy seem to unlock doors that always stayed shut for her? Why did they move with a quiet confidence while she lived trapped in cycles of excitement and exhaustion? It was in this restless season that Clara stumbled upon the forgotten secret to getting rich. A truth she would discover not in a book, not in a seminar, but in a real, lived experience that would change everything. And here's where her story takes a turn. What she found wasn't a golden opportunity or a hidden shortcut. It was something far simpler. Something so ordinary, most people overlook it every single day. Yet it became the foundation of her breakthrough and the key to building the wealthy life she had always dreamed of. Before I reveal what Clara discovered, let me invite you to join her journey all the way through. Stories like this aren't just meant to inspire, they're meant to guide. So if you're ready to uncover what the wealthy already know, make sure you hit subscribe right now. That way, you'll never miss the next story that could shift the direction of your life. The cycle of motivation. Clara loved new beginnings. She bought sleek planners with golden covers, colorful pens, and sticky notes plastered with bold declarations. Wake up at 5 a.m., run 3 miles, save half your paycheck. For a moment, her desk looked like the starting line of a brand new life. She could feel the thrill in her chest, imagining the version of herself who would finally escape financial struggle. The first few days always felt magical. She woke up before sunrise, ran through the empty streets, and sipped coffee with a sense of victory. She filled pages with plans, highlighting goals like become debt-free in 6 months or double my income this year. The spark of motivation lit her up like the skyline at night, and she believed nothing could stop her. But soon, the rhythm of the city caught up. Deadlines piled on her desk, subway delays drained her patience, and fatigue whispered, "Tomorrow you can start again." Tomorrow became next week, and next week became another broken promise. The Golden Planner turned into a notebook of half-finished dreams, a silent reminder of her failed commitments. Clara's emotions swung like a pendulum. One day she was bursting with energy. The next, she dragged her feet through crowded streets, weighed down with guilt. She hated herself for starting strong and quitting even faster. She wondered if maybe she just wasn't built for success, if motivation was something only other people could hold on to. And one afternoon at the office, while she tried hiding her frustration behind a fake smile, her coworker Daniel leaned over and whispered, "Another new plan, Clara? Or is this the same one from last month?" His words stung. She brushed it off with a laugh, but deep inside she knew he was right. And as she stared at her abandoned planner, she couldn't help thinking, what am I missing that everyone else seems to understand? The friend who seemed different. On a rainy Thursday night, Clara and Isabella left the office together, their heels clicking against the wet sidewalks. Neon lights reflected in puddles, and the hum of the city buzzed around them. Clara complained about another plan that had slipped through her fingers, another week wasted. Isabella listened quietly, the kind of friend who didn't interrupt but absorbed every word. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm cursed," Clara sighed, hugging her coat tighter. "I get so fired up, and then life just pulls the rug out from under me." She expected Isabella to nod in agreement, to share the same exhaustion. But instead, Isabella's calm eyes and steady smile hinted at something different, something Clara couldn't quite name. Unlike Clara, Isabella never bragged about new routines or dramatic plans. Yet month after month, she seemed to quietly rise. Better projects at work, healthier energy, even a glow of peace that made her stand out in a crowd. She couldn't help notice the gap between them, though they started at the same place. As they ducked into a small cafe for shelter, Clara leaned across the table and asked, half joking, "So, what's your secret? How do you keep moving forward while I keep tripping over myself?" Isabella chuckled, stirring her tea, but didn't answer right away. She let the silence linger, leaving Clara restless with curiosity. Finally, Isabella said softly, "Clara, it's not that I have more motivation than you. In fact, I lose it all the time. The truth is, I don't rely on motivation at all." Her words hung in the air, simple yet puzzling, and Clara felt a knot tighten in her chest. If not motivation, then what? What was Isabella leaning on that Clara had been blind to all along?
The question that changes everything. Clara leaned in closer, her voice almost a whisper over the clatter of cups and the hum of conversations around them. "If you don't rely on motivation, then what do you rely on? Tell me, Isa, what's the secret?" Her eyes searched her friend's face like someone begging for the missing piece to a lifelong puzzle. Isabella didn't answer right away. Instead, she smiled faintly, as if holding a key that wasn't meant to be handed over so easily. She tapped her spoon against the edge of her mug, letting the silence stretch long enough for Clara's impatience to grow. Clara felt her heart pound, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it some course, a hidden investment, a powerful network? Finally, Isabella leaned forward, her tone low and steady, almost secretive. "It's something simple, something everyone knows about, but almost no one practices. The forgotten secret to getting rich isn't in a seminar or a book. It's in your daily choices, in the habits you think are too small to matter." Clara frowned, confused, unsatisfied by the vague answer. Seeing her friend's frustration, Isabella added, "Clara, you're not ready to understand just by hearing me say it. You need to see it, feel it. Tomorrow morning, meet me at the old stone bridge by the river just before sunrise. There's someone I want you to meet, someone who showed me what I'm trying to explain." Clara blinked, taken aback. The idea of waking up before dawn to meet a stranger at a bridge sounded almost absurd. And yet the way Isabella spoke made her feel like this was no ordinary meeting. It was as if the city itself was about to reveal a hidden truth, one that could finally break the chains holding her back. The mentor by the bridge. The city was still half asleep when Clara made her way to the old stone bridge. Street lights flickered, buses groaned in the distance, and the sky was painted in the first shades of gray. She hugged her jacket tight, half regretting she'd agreed to this. Who was this person Isabella wanted her to meet at such an hour? As she approached, she saw Isabella waving. Beside her stood a man in his 60s, sharp in a tailored coat, his silver hair catching the glow of dawn. He had an air of calm power, like someone who didn't need to prove himself. Clara immediately noticed the expensive watch on his wrist, the way his shoes shone despite the damp pavement. This was no ordinary man. "Clara," Isabella said softly, "this is my Uncle Raphael." The man extended his hand with a warm smile. "I've heard a lot about you," he said. His voice carried both kindness and authority. Clara shook his hand, feeling a strange mix of nerves and curiosity. Why had Isabella brought her here to meet him? They stood by the railing of the bridge as cars began to stream below, horns echoing faintly in the distance. Raphael looked out at the water, then back at Clara. "You're wondering how to build wealth, and I'll tell you something most people refuse to believe. The secret isn't talent, luck, or even motivation. Those things burn out. The forgotten secret to getting rich is discipline. Daily, simple habits that compound into fortune." Clara's eyes widened. She'd heard the word discipline before, of course, but never spoken with such weight. Raphael continued, "Wealth is like this city river. Drop by drop, it never stops flowing. You don't notice the power until years have passed. The same is true for small habits. They look ordinary at first, but over time they carve out greatness." His words sank deep, and Clara realized this conversation was about to change everything she thought she knew about success. Raphael's story of struggle. Raphael leaned against the cold railing of the bridge, his eyes fixed on the water below. "Clara," he began, "when you see me now, you see the nice watch, the polished shoes, the comfort of wealth. But what you don't see is where I started." His voice lowered, and for the first time it carried a heaviness that made Clara lean closer. "I came to this city with nothing but a backpack," he continued. "I rented a single room with peeling paint and shared a bathroom with strangers. My first job? Sweeping floors at a restaurant that paid me just enough to eat bread and soup. And every night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, asking myself how I'd ever climb out of that hole." His words painted a picture so vivid, Clara could almost smell the grease of that kitchen. "I chased motivation back then, too," he admitted. "I went to seminars, bought tapes, wrote goals on my wall. And like you, I burned out. Excitement is easy. It fades. I realized that if I wanted to escape poverty, I needed something stronger than excitement. I needed habits that didn't care about my feelings." He tapped his chest with his finger as if to hammer the truth into place. "So I created rules for myself," he said, his tone sharper now. "Wake up at 5 a.m. no matter what. Save 10% of every dollar even when it hurt. Read one book a week even if it meant skipping nights out. It didn't feel glamorous, there were no fireworks, no applause, but month by month, year by year, those small habits stacked like bricks. Eventually, they built the foundation of everything you see today." Clara stared at him, her heart pounding. For the first time, wealth didn't sound like luck or magic. It sounded like sweat, patience, and discipline. Still, a question nagged her. If it really was just about habits, why did so many people fail? As if reading her mind, Raphael smiled knowingly and said, "Because habits are invisible at first, and that's where most people quit." Clara felt the weight of Raphael's confession pressing on her chest. His success wasn't built on lightning bolts of inspiration, but on years of silent, invisible effort. She couldn't stop wondering, would I have the strength to keep going if nothing changed for years? Raphael's eyes softened as he looked at her. "Most people don't," he said. "That's why discipline is rare, and wealth even rarer." If you're listening to Raphael's words right now, pause for a second. What's one habit you could start today that might feel invisible now, but could change your future? Drop it in the comments below. Your answer might just inspire someone else watching this story. Raphael turned back to the river, his voice quiet but deliberate. "Clara, let me tell you what it really feels like to live through the invisible years. The years when nothing seems to be working, when everyone else thinks you're wasting your time, but deep underground, something powerful is taking root. The invisible years." Raphael's gaze stayed fixed on the river as he spoke. His words carried the weight of time. "For years, Clara, my life didn't look any different. I woke up early, worked my job, saved scraps of money, and studied late into the night. My friends laughed at me. They said, 'What's the point of living like a monk? You'll never get ahead sweeping floors and eating soup.' And honestly, some nights I almost believed them." He clenched his jaw, as if reliving the frustration. "I saved every spare dollar until it hurt. For 3 years straight, I walked past shops, restaurants, and temptations while everyone else indulged. My bank account grew so slowly it felt like nothing was happening. But I kept going, telling myself one day this discipline will pay off. Still, it was hard to keep the faith when no one else could see what I was building." Then, Raphael's eyes lit up, a spark of victory breaking through the calm. "And finally, the moment came. I had saved just enough to buy a small apartment no one else wanted, cracked walls, broken plumbing, in a neighborhood people avoided. But I saw potential. I fixed it up myself, every night after work, paint on my clothes and calluses on my hands, and when I finally rented it out, that first check came in, and for the first time in my life, my money was working for me." Clara leaned forward, her breath catching. She could almost see the scene, Raphael, exhausted but triumphant, holding that rent check like a treasure. "That moment changed everything," he said softly. "It wasn't the size of the money, it was proof. Proof that years of invisible habits had created something real. From then on, I knew discipline was no longer invisible. It was power, and power grows. But here's what most people miss. The hardest part isn't the first win. It's surviving long enough to reach it. Most people quit in the invisible years, when there's no applause, no results, no proof. That's why you see them chasing the next motivational high, but never crossing into wealth." His words struck Clara like thunder, leaving her silent, her mind buzzing with questions.
The bridge that holds. Raphael rested his hands on the cold railing and pointed down the length of the stone bridge. Morning traffic had begun to flow steadily, cars, buses, bikes all rumbling across, the city pulsing with life. "Clara, look at this bridge," he said. "Every single day, thousands of people trust it with their lives. None of them think about whether it will hold. They just cross, confident it won't collapse." He paused, letting the thought settle. "But this bridge doesn't stand because of inspiration. It doesn't stand because some engineer once felt motivated. It stands because of daily discipline, inspections, maintenance, reinforcement. People show up whether it's raining, snowing, or blistering hot. The bridge doesn't ask for applause. It simply holds. His voice grew firmer, echoing over the hum of traffic. Clara traced her fingers along the railing, the reality of his words sinking in. She imagined all the invisible work that kept this structure strong, bolts tightened, cracks repaired, weight tested. The bridge looked simple on the surface, but beneath it lay years of consistent effort. Suddenly, she realized the parallel to her own life. She had been waiting for motivation, for some dramatic moment of inspiration, while what she needed was the quiet strength of a bridge. Raphael turned toward her, his eyes narrowing with intensity. "Do you understand now? The wealthy don't build their lives on fleeting feelings. They build like this bridge, stone by stone, day by day. And when storms come, when life shakes, they remain standing because discipline holds what motivation never could." Clara's chest tightened. For the first time, she felt both terrified and hopeful. Terrified of the years of invisible labor ahead. Hopeful that maybe, just maybe, she too could become unshakable. Yet, a question still burned inside her. What happens when discipline feels too heavy to carry? As if sensing her fear, Raphael leaned closer and whispered, "That's the test most people never pass. And I'll tell you why. In a moment." The test of weariness. Raphael straightened his coat as a cold gust swept over the bridge. "Clara, discipline isn't glamorous. There will be days when it feels like chains, when every bone in your body wants to quit. That's when most people stop, right before the payoff. But if you want to cross into wealth, you have to learn how to push through the weariness." He lifted a finger, as if laying out rules etched into stone. First, shrink the task. When you can't face an hour of study, do 15 minutes. When saving feels impossible, save a single dollar. Small actions keep the chain unbroken, and that chain is your lifeline. Wealth isn't built by giants. It's built by ordinary people who refuse to let the chain snap. Second, he continued, anchor your habits to routines that already exist. Drink your morning coffee? Read 2 pages while the cup is hot. Ride the train to work? Listen to 10 minutes of financial knowledge. The key is consistency, not intensity. Consistency makes discipline automatic, and once it's automatic, it no longer drains you. Third, Raphael said, his tone sharpening, protect your environment. Motivation dies fastest in toxic company. If your friends spend every weekend burning cash, distance yourself. Surround yourself with people who remind you of where you're going, not where you've been. Your circle will either fuel your habits or destroy them. Clara nodded slowly, her mind spinning with conviction. Finally, Raphael leaned closer, his voice softer but firmer than ever. Clara, you don't conquer weariness by being superhuman. You conquer it by refusing to break the chain, even on your weakest days. That's the forgotten secret to getting rich. Not feeling powerful, but acting consistently, especially when you don't. Clara swallowed hard, realizing she was being handed the blueprint she had been chasing her whole life. Clara's transformation. The days that followed weren't magical for Clara. There were no fireworks, no instant breakthroughs, but something inside her had shifted. Each morning when her alarm rang, she thought of Raphael's words, "Don't break the chain." Even when her body screamed to stay in bed, she got up. Even when saving a single dollar felt laughable, she tucked it away. Slowly, discipline became less of a burden and more of a quiet companion. At first, no one noticed. Her coworkers still teased her for skipping lunches out, and friends rolled their eyes when she left parties early. But inside, Clara felt different. She no longer chased motivation like a drug. Instead, she built her life brick by brick, habit by habit. Every time she honored her routine, her self-respect grew stronger, and the old guilt that once haunted her began to fade. Months turned into years, and Clara's habits became unshakable. She looked back one day and realized she no longer felt trapped in cycles of broken promises. She had become the kind of woman who kept her word to herself. That realization was worth more than any paycheck. It was freedom. Her confidence no longer came from hype, but from knowing she could trust her own discipline. When her finances finally began to grow, first a small investment, then a raise at work, then bigger opportunities, it didn't shock her. It felt like the natural result of who she had become. She smiled, remembering Raphael's metaphor. She had turned herself into a bridge strong enough to carry the weight of her own dreams. Wealth wasn't just in her bank account, it was in her character. 5 years later, Clara stood on the balcony of her own high-rise apartment, looking out at the same city that once crushed her with doubt. Only now, she saw it differently. Streets filled with possibility, skyscrapers that mirrored her own rise. She had multiple properties under her name, a business she'd grown from scratch, and the freedom to travel when she pleased. But the richest part of her life wasn't money. It was the quiet confidence that came from years of showing up, no matter what. At family gatherings, old friends often asked, "What was the turning point?" Clara always smiled, her mind flashing back to that dawn on the stone bridge with Raphael. She'd reply, "The forgotten secret to getting rich isn't luck. It's the small, boring habits no one claps for. But if you keep going, one day, you'll look up and realize you've built a fortune." If this story inspired you, don't leave without giving it a like right now. Because just like Clara's habits, small actions, done consistently, can change everything. Clara's journey is a reminder for all of us. Motivation fades, but discipline builds. The wealthy don't wait for inspiration. They build their future one small habit at a time. And the same opportunity is in front of you right now. So, here's my question to you. What's one simple habit you can start today that your future self will thank you for? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your answer, and your words might inspire someone else on their journey. If this story spoke to you, do one small thing right now. Give this video a like. Then, subscribe so you never miss the next story that could shift your life. And finally, share this video with someone you care about. Because discipline isn't just a personal secret, it's a gift we can pass on.